Okay, hello. So today I'll be discussing Ireland and its relationship with cultural modernization theory, and how, more specifically, religion and democracy have influenced each other, if at all, in this nation. So first I want to explain cultural modernization theory. Most of you probably remember it from the Foundations textbook, but a brief overview is just that the cultural influence can determine democratic trends, either positive or negative. Culture can be in forms of customs or morals, and especially religion. In Foundations, they explore the relationships between certain religions and democracy. So, for instance, Catholicism's reliance on the one church, one truth rule is generally incompatible with democratic representation, in the sense that an ideal democracy would represent different ideals and not unquestioned authority, such as in divinity or the Catholic divinity. So, okay, I'll try to get through the history of Ireland really quickly, and why Catholicism is so crucial to the country and their culture. So basically, British colonizers and Protestant settlers came over in about the 16th century. This started obvious conflict between the two, and Ireland had fought for its independence and representation in the government, which eventually led to the War of Independence um, in the 20th century. And that was a sort of a rebellion against the British government in all of Ireland, and they tried to fight for their own free, independent government. And they got it, and the Republic of Ireland was created after that, and it split off from Northern Ireland, which is this yellow part right here, because the Protestant majority in Northern Ireland, so right here and right here, was against the fact of Ireland being able to control their state and Ireland being in charge of their government. So the Protestant majority protested against that. The government, the British government, responded to that and then gave Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland two parliaments. So Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland are separated from each other, and the Northern Irish are still being represented by the British government. So that made them mad, obviously, and the Northern Irish were separated into two groups, and there were Irish nationalists, and then there were Protestant, union groups that fought with each other, had a bunch of conflict, there was a bunch of bombing campaigns, and that was supposed to send a message to the British government that they needed their own representation. So because of this, you think that the Catholic government in the Republic of Ireland would be more authoritarian, just based on the Catholics' relationship with more dictatorship governments, especially in Europe, in that period of time was a little bit towards either fascism or a democracy. So especially in the case of Benito Mussolini in Italy, had a majority Catholic population. And you'd also think that the Catholic Nationalist Army would be fighting for dictatorship in Northern Ireland, because they've been controlled too long by a different group. But actually, the Constitution for the Republic of Ireland is largely democratic and even relatively inspired from the American Constitution. So the third president of Ireland, who authored the Constitution in 1937, Eamon de Valera, wanted to serve the people instead. Also, during this period in Europe, it would have been relatively easy to become authoritarian in Ireland, since the government was just created after breaking off from the British government, and de Valera's dedication to the Catholic religion. Also, Northern Ireland's dedication to protest was actually supremely democratic. They had marches, and they tried to get elected members into Westminster in the British Parliament. So does this mean that cultural modernization theory is being proved wrong? Well, yes and no, because Ireland has proved that a relatively conservative, authoritarian, or not authoritarian, monarchical religion is still compatible with the freedom of democracy. It does somewhat prove it wrong, but also there are economic factors that contribute to the success of modernization of Ireland. For instance, its industrialization and its service sector and economy was relatively strong in the 20th century. So that's in comparison with Latin American countries that have a majority Catholic population, but still live under dictatorships. Because they are not as strong economically, they sort of suffer because of that, and despite of the religion or the religious population. So, for instance, like Venezuela or Brazil. So, in conclusion, modernization can live without secularization. Ireland is also an outlier case with leadership integrity at the time and its tradition of social order.